wait a minute. But that's the custom. After you graduate from college, if your parents have means, then it's go find yourself. Why hasn't the education system been focused on that? That's the point to all this stuff we're asking you to do. See if you can find yourself in it. Take some art. Maybe you'll discover that there's some art in you, or some science. That's the whole point to the education process, is finding out who you are. That make sense? But no, I'm suggesting that you consider. What grade are you now?
12th.
Okay, that this process that you've been in has been, from my frame of reference, about figuring out who you are. So you can answer the other questions that people always put first. Well, what do you want to do with yourself? Well, how in the hell do I know what I'm going to do with myself? I don't even know who I am. I mean, that's where we start out with IPS. Find your interests. Well, and I discovered that nobody knew what they were interested in because there was nobody home. Okay? Discovery of a self-identity. Who am I? You're still looking, right? Yeah. Discover of possibilities and a purpose. I did a workshop one summer for a group of inner city kids, and there was this one boy who had a stride like a gazelle. He was the fastest 16-year-old in the United States, and already colleges were sending him recruitment letters. He was a potential Olympian. And my cabin had the teenage boys, and he brought his Monopoly game, and he managed that game like a professional therapist. I mean, he set up the game, and it was an ongoing game all week, and he managed conflicts. He was just a fabulous kid. I was so impressed with this guy. And the way I set it up was, each day we had an hour lunch and then a recreational time, a second hour. So during those 2 hours, I scheduled, you had time with Caldwell, so that everybody at least had an hour with me during the time. So my hour with him, I was interested in what he wanted to do with himself. He said, my dream is to be a branch manager of a bank. And I found out where he lived, and I understood that was at the top of the pyramid in his perception of what he had seen. A branch manager of a bank. So discover possibilities. Well, you can't aspire beyond what you see. So I said to him, and I got talking to him, but because I saw him running. I mean, they played some games, and I don't know what the games are there. Well, the early games are that teenagers play and run, chase each other through the woods, and he was like a high school person with elementary school kids. I mean, he was that superior. Okay, and that's when I learned about. At home he had recruitment letters that he had done nothing about. And one of his recruitment letters was from Yale. I asked him if he knew about Yale, and he said not particularly. I said at that time Clinton was president and Bush #1 had just been in office. I said, did you know that ex-President Bush went to Yale? He said, no, I didn't know that. I said, do you know that if you went to Yale and you made the Olympic team as a Yale track man, and I told him about Grace Kelly's brother. Remember the actress Grace Kelly? Her brother won an Olympic medal, I think it was a bronze medal, in single sculls rowing. And you know, he's up at the top of the pyramid at Yale because he's their Olympian. I said, if you go to Yale, the kids who'll be in the class with you will own the banks that have have branches in your neighborhood. I said, there's a place called Wall Street. And he went, oh, okay, so possibilities. And oh, I mean, it's like, you mean I could, yeah. So if you're interested, I'll help you craft a letter in response to this recruitment letter. And I went to his home, met his mother. We drafted the letter, and then he broke up his communication with me. And I looked him up, and I learned that his father was an alcoholic, and he was an only child, and she was his mama's boy. And she didn't want him to leave Los Angeles. Now, we went to lunch recently. He went to UCLA, graduated in finance with a minor in international studies in Spanish, and he works for one of the major banks in town, and he's doing his thing. And he was driving a little Porsche with a single tailpipe in the middle with a little coupe. He's in large measure a success story, but my point is the potential for a much greater contribution to the world had he gone for the, okay, but Mom wanted to keep him close so she could keep a watch on him. Okay, discover possibilities and purpose, and what direction am I headed? Purpose is direction. Purpose is never finished. Purpose is only further. And so we set goals that enable us to measure whether our actions are taking us in the direction that we want to go. Now, if we haven't chosen a purpose or we don't have a direction, then it's really difficult to know whether any particular action makes a difference. I remember when we were at IPS, a kid like Barney, Barney's gone. Barney was always an artist. I don't know where they are now, but I had drawings from Barney from the 10th grade, that you know, Barney's cartoons. So Barney always had that as a frame of reference when somebody asked him, you know, should we go and do this and that? Well, this is an architect. And I can tell you in the traditional school, he'd have been told, with your reading scores, you can't be an architect. I was in the hospital one day. I had an injury to my wrist, and while I was being treated in the emergency room, a guy passed by the door and stopped, and he said, "Mr. Williams?" Now, Mr. Williams dates the person, because I became Caldwell with Dawn and Night and ever after, so he was pre all that. He called all the rest of the medical staff in, and he said, "This man is the reason why I'm a doctor." And he turned to me and he said, "You wouldn't let Ms. Caldwell kick me out of her geometry class, although she thought I was too stupid to pass geometry." And he was he wanted to be a doctor, so I mean, I said, then doctors are passing geometry. You know, you're a 16-year-old doctor, and go do it. Do whatever you have to do to do it. This is a point to a definition that I taught to elementary school students, to junior high school students, to high school students, to college students, to the UCLA basketball team, to corporate executives. I mean, and if there's a word in there that somebody doesn't understand, you can hand them a dictionary, okay? It doesn't matter if they've used this language before or not. Okay. Next step. And this is why I asked you to come up, Samantha. I had an opportunity to meet Abraham Maslow up at Esalen. He's dead too now, but you know that's part of what happens when you get old. They bury people every week. Maslow came up with a theory of what he called a psychology of being, and he was making the point about the importance of being rather than in a world where we're focused on doing, and we get our reputations from what we do. You know, I'm a doctor, I'm a teacher, I'm a counselor, my postulate is that the most compelling need of humans is to belong. The worst thing you could do to a human is exclude them. We fear exclusion more than anything, more than death itself. As a matter of fact, our fear of dying is, well, maybe there's a place that I'll go that nobody else that I want to be with. Okay.
That's why suicide's an option, right?
Yeah, I want, and adolescence is the peak of that need to belong. And we want to belong to the preferred group. And in every grouping of humans, there is a preferred group. That's just how we humans are. We are hierarchical. And so within a family, you can see it. And certainly within any organization. We define inclusion as belonging, being respected and valued, having perceptions and abilities taken seriously and not dismissed, gaining some control of our own environment.